Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790 AM. Brought to you proudly by the Tennessee Wildlife and Resources Agency.
Hey, welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790. Good morning to all you folks in Brownsville, Tennessee on 1520 AM and, of course, 95.3 in Jackson, Tennessee on News Talk 101.5. Show number 493, 7 away from 500. As we roll into our 20th year on the air, Shelby McCall is our show producer, as she has been for several years. I wish she would have brought her trumpet this morning, because I think this young friend of mine is coming up next. Would have liked to heard her rendition of House of the Rising Sun. Rob Simbeck, I have the only show producer that can pull a trumpet out and play House of the Rising Sun on a trumpet. Now, I don't know how many radio show host you've talked to as we promote this new book, but Rob, I wish she would have done it, and we still might do that. Rob, be ready, I mean, because this is pretty cool. My good friend Rob Simbeck is on the line with us this morning as he talks about another one of his chapters in his life. As we could spend probably the entire show talking to Rob about where he's been, where he is, and where he's going, but Rob has
and where he can go to once the statute of limitations runs out.
I can do that, Dave Gabbert. Okay, now Dave he's hanging in the background there, and Gene Smith can't wait to do a pun. But good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Larry. It's good to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me on, and good morning, Dave and Gene.
Well, it's good to have you on, and this is not Larry King Live. This is Larry Ray Dead, as I tell everybody. So, Rob was good enough to send me a few pointers here, but I wished I'd have typed it out in bigger font. But so if anything comes out of this, it will come out of my friendship with Rob, and what a talented guy he is. But he's come out with the Southern Wildlife Watcher, Notes of a Naturalist. And before I go to the questions you wanted me to ask, I've got to ask you this, Rob. You've done a lot in your career. I love the press release. I can't wait to read the book itself, whether it's on the ebook or whatever it might be. What made you do this?
This has been, well, as you know, as well as anybody, I write about the outdoors because of Debbie. When we started dating, she knew every bird and tree and rock in the woods, and I just paid attention. And I started writing for the outdoors for Tennessee Wildlife and the Tennessee Conservationist, and eventually I was writing for magazines in 20 states. And one day, Linda Renshaw, who was the editor of South Carolina Wildlife in the 90s, called me and said, I would love a column that just dealt with one critter every issue, that told a story or two and got in all of the natural history and really made, people want to connect with the outdoors, one creature at a time. And that column was called For Wildlife Watchers, and it ran from 1994 until earlier this year. It's finally run its course, but I did probably 150 columns or more over the course of those 25 years. And this is a collection of some of the pieces that I really thought told a story. This book, University of South Carolina Press published it, pulls together 36 of those creatures.
And the kind of unusual about South Carolina, I don't think you'd even been there, if I'm not mistaken.
I hitchhiked through when I was 19 one time on my way to visit a girl in Florida.
Okay.
And then I've been back a couple times for SEOPA events and to visit our mutual friend Jim Cassada, who wrote the foreword to the book.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm a Tennessee boy in and out, adopted, and South Carolina just happened to be the place I found a literary home. And the good news is that this book covers the entire Southeast, so it's not hard to pick critters that are both in Tennessee and South Carolina.
And you do a lot of critters, in the book. And
they're divided into three categories: air, land, and water.
That's good categories.
Air's got the Luna moth, a bald eagle, even the housefly, which we can talk about. Land has got groundhog, copperhead, red fox, and bobcat, and the water's got the shrimp, the bullfrog, Atlantic sturgeon, and striped bass, among others.
And it's just amazing if we look back at Rob's career as a musician, all the different contacts, his long extended career in Nashville. He's not only written for Washington Post, Guidepost, which I think is really cool. If anybody can write from Guidepost, 20 books. And it's really strange. I was in the library like 2 days ago. We have goofy live hours down our library, and I'm going through the books there, and I run across the book about the flight, the women.
Daughter of the Air, about Cornelia Ford, the Nashville pilot from World War II.
And saw it there, and I said, golly, it's ironic. But the book itself, was it easy? I mean, you've written so many books, and I know the book about the symbols of Tennessee, all these different kind of things. Did this one flow after you, and how'd you pick them out?
Well, the trick with this, because the columns already existed, I took 36 columns I'd already written, but what I wanted to do was update them so that it's the most current information about population trends, about whether they're in trouble, facing environmental or other trouble, whether they're stronger or weaker than before, and talk to experts, the biologists and the people in the state game commissions all around the Southeast. So it was a pretty good labor-intensive piece of work there. I interviewed, I think it was 80 people.
80 people.
For the 36 critters. And I should mention, my Tennessee experts in this one, Richard Connors, who is naturalist and photographer, who's retired from the state park system, talking to me about the white-tailed dragonfly. Warren Douglas, who's a ranger at Reelfoot Lake State Park. We talked about bald eagles, which you got to talk Tennessee. We're going to talk bald eagles in the South. Yes. And our mutual friend Rita Venable, author of Butterflies of Tennessee. I talked to her about the Luna moth. But basically, they're my stories. Things that I've observed or been part of, and then I draw in quotes from people who really know their stuff.
Well, and again, we're talking to Rob Simbeck about his most recent book out, The Southern Wildlife Watcher, Notes of a Naturalist, and even the people who you use as have read this book and gave you nice comments about it. When I went through that list, I couldn't help but notice the late Charlie Daniels on there.
Charlie was very, very kind. I've worked with him many times over the years. I had interviewed him for Bob Kingsley's show, written his bio a time or two, and he, one time at CEOPA, he voiced some things that I used when I presented the EIC awards. But he offered a quote that said, basically some good inside information from a native son of the South. And I called him and said, Charlie, I'm not native. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. Can we say an adopted son of the South? And he said, sure. And that was the last conversation I had with him.
So you actually just
and we lost a great one there.
You just picked up the phone and called Charlie Daniels. Isn't that amazing, folks? I have trouble getting through to my cousin, but Rob can pick up the phone and call Charlie Daniels. It's pretty amazing.
Larry, rumor has it you had trouble picking up the phone, calling, and ordering a pizza.
Yes. Was that any insight that we can? Is there a 10-second rule on that? Okay, I just want to make sure Dave Gabbert is. What do you got to say, Gene Smith? You're trying to come in.
I repaired a Charlie Daniels violin one time, a fiddle.
You did?
Yeah, red, white, and blue one.
Wow. Okay. That's Gene Smith on the other line is one of our co-hosts, Rob, who hunter education instructor here, and repairs in his previous lifetime repaired instruments, including my.
I love that.
Including my old cornet, which is still playable. Again, talking to Rob Simbeck, I got to ask you this about it because the book itself came out yesterday. You received so many good comments about it from the reports that I have and everything. So do you have a favorite story in the book? Is there one section?
Well, for me, there are two things. Number one, I kick it off with the crow, the American crow, simply because it and its relatives like the blue jay are such active, noisy creatures. And this book, some of my love of the wildlife started because we got chickens 30 years ago.
Yes.
And I could tell by listening to them from my office in the back of the house what was going on. I mean, I could tell when they'd laid an egg, when the neighbor's cat was out, when there was a hawk in the area, and that led me to listen to, the crows and blue jays and everybody else. And so that's the way I kick off the book and the way that sort of my life dovetailed into the outdoors. But maybe my favorite, the ruby-throated hummingbird. On one of the first dates I had with Debbie, I went to her house, and she stood in the backyard. She said, "Watch this." And she picked up this thing that it looked like a little hourglass with saxophones on the bottom. I didn't know it was – I knew so little about it that I didn't know there was a hummingbird feeder. So she picked it up and walked out into the yard and stood there like the Statue of Liberty with this thing on a string from her outstretched hand. And she stood there quite a while until I thought, should I leave? Is this normal behavior? And then at that moment, two hummingbirds flew by my face and went over there and drank out of that feeder that she was holding up.
Amazing.
And it was it really helped me fall in love with hummingbirds, nature, and Debbie all at the same time.
Well,
and it's made for a great life ever since.
Well, can you hang on, Rob? We'd like to talk a little bit longer, and we got a little bit more time. So we're going to take a break, come back with Rob Simbeck, Dave Gabbert, Gene Smith, our co-host Shelby McCall. Is our show producer on Outdoors, Larry Ray. We'll be right back.